Hello, hello. How are you, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters? We want to say good afternoon to you, good morning, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you're in the world. We want to welcome you to CCMD podcast. This is coming to you from Christ Chapel, Maryland, a branch of Redeemed Christian Church of God. I'm a humble self. I'm the pastor of the church. My name is Dele Akanle, and I have with me also a wife of 30 years, and we co-pastor Christ Chapel together. But I'm going to leave her to just introduce herself again to you, baby.
Thank you so very much. We want to welcome you once again to this podcast. And we want to start by saying a big thank you to each and every one of you that watched the last podcast. We want to encourage you that you should share this podcast because there are so many people who need this. People are getting married every day, and some of them don't even know what they are getting into. And that's why we have a lot of young marriages breaking up, even older ones. So we want to say thank you. Please keep sharing it. And I can assure you, your being here today is going to be a very fruitful time for you. So make sure you stay tuned and don't go anywhere.
Yeah, that's right, baby. 30 years, a few months, and a few days counting, and I'm sure you can get a lot from us. Like you said, marriages are going through a lot of challenges, and then we just deem it fit for us to share the little experience we have. And we hope it's going to be a blessing to you. But having said that, we would like you to please be a part of the conversation or the discussion in this podcast. We would love to hear your opinion, your suggestions, and even your questions. And we're going to do our best to be able to address them. But before we start the ball rolling today, I want us to just do a little bit of casting our mind back a little bit. 30 years, that is quite some journey. Let me allow my wife to give her own version of how it started. I have my own version. Let's hear from you, baby.
Okay. So there are now two different versions to it. Well, it makes it more colorful. But it's been a very wonderful journey. And honestly, I can recast my mind back at this time and know that, I met my husband through my sister-in-law. Funny enough, I became friends with my sister-in-law, one of my sister-in-laws, through a mutual friend. And when I met her, I just really loved her, and I loved when we visited one another. I just loved the family because they were so welcoming, and those ladies are beautiful. They still are beautiful. So, I mean, I just took to her. We became friends, and before you know it, I will visit one another, go to their house. She comes to our house. At that time, I'd finished my high school education, and it was a time I was trying to get admission. He was already in college. I remember your 21st birthday.
Yeah.
We were not even dating or anything, but he had a birthday party, and there were a lot of people there.
Oh,
And I
my.
went with my big sister
Yeah.
to the party. I wasn't interested in anything they were doing because I was like, these guys are a bit older than me. But as things goes on, one thing led to the other, and we became friends. And from being friends, we found out that we had more interests than being friends.
Then we became
Then
friends.
we became friends, deeper friends. But one of the things that I want to really point out along the journey is that when it became obvious that he was interested in me, and that I also became interested in him. I then remembered that I had some specs, if you know what I mean, some speculations, I mean, a specification rather, of the kind of person I wanted to marry. At that time, I used to work in a mortgage bank back then. And I was looking forward to marrying some of those young, bankers who are always in suits and all that and all that. And this was this gentleman who was from a very renowned university back home, who was always in jeans and t-shirts. People used to say, that guy's an American guy. What are you doing with him? And stuff like that. But I remember that when things became serious, I prayed. I prayed to God. I remember very well. And I remember God giving me the scripture in the book of Luke 5:5. when the disciples told Jesus, when Jesus said they should cast out their net, and they told Jesus that we've been fishing all night and we did not catch anything, but at thy word. And they did. So that was the word that came, the rhema that came to my mind, honestly. And immediately it came, I'm like, okay, what is this? What is this trying to point to? And I could really discern, because then I'd become a born again Christian. He also was a born again Christian. I could discern that what God was telling me, that I have all my specs, my specifications. I had all the qualities I wanted. But those were just outward things. God was saying, look deeper than that. And I remember saying, I will go ahead because at thy word. And this is 30 years counting. And I'm so grateful I did. Because if I just looked at the suits of those guys, then maybe I would have married the wrong person. And you know what? When we got married, my husband became a pastor after some years, a minister of God. And we have to beg him these days not to wear suits all the time. Isn't that interesting?
Very interesting. So, I never liked suits, to be honest with you. So when I became a pastor, I started wearing suits. It was like, no, you prayed me into this thing. And anyway, that was quite right. One interesting thing about our relationship, we met 1983 precisely. That was just shortly after my
21st birthday.
21st birthday. Yes. And interestingly, we did it for 10 years. Well, we got married 1993, I remember somebody have asked me, how did you propose to your wife? Now, I tried to remember, did I actually propose to her? No, we didn't propose. I just knew I was going to marry her. And then we never even discussed marriage as a serious thing. I mean, we never put it on the table. All of a sudden, we just started, okay, what date? Is it April? Is it May? Now, I remember vividly, we actually chose April. But this, I don't know what happened. Something happened then. And then we pushed it on to May 8th. And here we are, 30 years after. And it's been a wonderful, glorious journey.
It has been.
Yeah.
It has been. And I know that those 10 years that we dated and courted wasn't without its ups and downs.
Oh, definitely.
But because we believe, because along the line, we became born again Christians and we went our different ways.
Different ways, yes.
And I remember that my husband's sisters were still my friends.
That's right.
And so when I go, I just go there casually and he will see me and say, oh, that's my wife. And we used to laugh about it, that's water under the bridge and stuff like that. But when we went our different ways completely, one way or the other, because it was God's plan and purpose,
that's right,
he brought us back together. So one of the things that actually really taught me is that just keep on praying. It's very important. Keep praying. And even though you have what you all the specifications, all the qualities you want in your spouse, hand it over to God.
That's right.
Because what you're thinking about might not be exactly the best for you. And it is very, 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 very real in our own situation.
Amen. Amen.
So let me say one other thing that is very funny. When my husband told my father-in-law then, God bless him, of beloved memory, when he told him that he's going to marry Toyin, he said, Daddy said, she's like your sister.
As a sister, yeah.
Because I was a friend to the sisters. That was quite interesting, right?
Yeah. Well, we thank God. We thank God for that. Now, okay, let's quickly go to the business of the day because of time. Last week we spoke about, we tried to speak to young people, not only young people, but people that want to go into marriage. We talk about readiness. We talk about preparation. Let's just take a step further. Let me just ask you right now, baby. People who are looking forward to marriage, because it's not only young people that are looking for marriage. There's some people that are of age, 30 plus. We even have people of 50 years nowadays who have not been married, or maybe people who have lost their husband, they're widows. What do we call a man who lost?
A widower.
A widower also, maybe they're also getting ready. So what expectation should they have for the marriage institution? Let me put it that way.
Okay. Expectations are not bad by themselves. Honestly, they are wrong. They are not wrong. Rather,
But they are major. You can
they are major. Expectations are not wrong, but they are major. They are major things to look at
Yep.
before you get married. And one of the things is that nobody would want to get married and say, I want a guy who is not doing well. I want a guy who cannot take care of me and things like that. So everybody wants an expectation. The moment we are born in life, we all have expectations.
Right.
Our parents have expectations for us. So there are things that you look forward to in marriage. That is, those expectations might come from you, for you, and they come from you for your spouse, and it's vice versa.
Vice versa.
For instance, courtship does not really show people exactly, completely and fully how your spouse is.
The full character.
The full character.
The full personality.
Courtship does not show that.
I mean, that's basic.
Because if even we courted for 10 years,
10 years.
and there are things we discovered even after we got married, So courtship does not show that fully. That is why each and every other person everybody must set specific, achievable, realistic expectations. And marriages change us. So even though we have expectations, I'm saying this beforehand, they can change even as we go into marriage. And I would like to say this too before I go into some of the expectations that I look forward to in marriage.
Yeah, let's be practical about this.
I like to say this, that a lot of things affect our expectations. Your family background, your upbringing, your culture, your education, society, friends, a lot of things, even your mindset would affect the expectations you set or you have before going into marriage. As much as they are not bad, but it has to be realistic. And oftentimes, a lot of young marriages do not understand that. And so when they get married, there are a lot of wow and ha moments to say, oh, so this is this person.
Oh, how come I didn't see it?
How come I didn't see it? So some of the expectations I know that I set before I got married, especially for myself, is that I have to be a good wife. Very important. And how did I get to that expectation? I got to that expectation because I saw how my mom was in her home. I come from a polygamous family, but it does not at all limit my mom from doing all the things she needed to do for my dad. I know a lot of people will say, oh, that was then. A lot of times have passed. But then I saw what she did and I decided to copy. But I made up my mind that I would even do better than what she did. That is to say, we have expectations and we can build on it.
Exactly.
That's the truth. And I had the expectation that I was never going to be upset with my husband. I'll make sure we don't argue. I'll be quick to say sorry. I will not fight with my husband. I'm going to be a good mother to my children when they start coming. Oh, let me tell you one of my expectations. And I tell you, it came to pass. It might seem funny or, I had these expectations. I come from a beautiful family. All my siblings are handsome and beautiful, as you can see. But when I also saw my in-laws, especially my sister-in-laws, my mother-in-law, they were so beautiful women. They are still beautiful. You need to see them. They are still beautiful women. So I kept telling myself, my children are going to look exactly like my mother-in-law. They are going to look like my sister-in-law and things like that. And honestly, they look like both of us, but those were some of the things I brought into marriage. So does it mean that when I had a child that looked like me or somebody else, no. But those are some of the, expectations that are not even heavy that we bring into marriage. And for some people, if it does not happen that way, they get upset.
That's right.
But it does not have to happen that way. The expectation that our house will always look spick and span. Yes, I want our house to always look spick and span. And because I've heard stories about my husband before I got in the marriage, and I've seen what it does. It doesn't like things being scattered. But then, We were together for about 6 years, and then children started coming.
Yeah.
It still looks fake and spam, but reality set in. I can't be a super mom. And I always tell people who just have children, don't be a super mom. You need to rest. I also had expectation for myself that, there will be no time. I will be upset and I will keep things from my husband. And I remember that I said it last week, that when I'm upset, I would just keep to myself and expect my husband to be able to read my mind, which didn't happen. And I had to learn. I had to learn over the years that, nobody can read anybody's mind. If you're going through stuff, you have to let your spouse know. And those are the expectations that a lot of women have, that I don't have the expectation. I have the expectation that my husband will always love me, which he still does, care for me, take care of me. But I never had that expectation that he's going to be the sole person that will just take care of me without my lifting a finger. Because I've heard people say, he came to ask for my hand in marriage, let him take care of me. That's not too realistic. And another expectation that I had, that I later found out that, wasn't too healthy, is the fact that when we got married, because we got married and soon after that, and we were alone for 6 years, so it was just both of us. And soon after that, we went on the mission field in Kenya. So having friends were not, we had friends, we had good friends, we had friends when we were back at home and things like that. But when we got to Nairobi, we were pastors. We didn't have so much friends like that. And the expectation was that my husband would ask to always, at every point in time, be my best friend. And truth be said, that didn't happen. Because number one, the man has a job. Number two, he's a pastor, he has to counsel, and so on and so forth. And so I began to look out, and not look out of marriage, look out of the enclosure that, no, it has to just be me and my husband, this and that and that and that. No, that did not, happen that way. And a lot of people, when this happened, causes problem for them. So those expectations, those are some of my expectations. I'm going to ask you what your expectations are, and where they, do you think that those expectations were fulfilled? Some of mine, I still see them till today, but some, like I said, I had to do a rethink.
Yes.
So that I can be well.
Yes, that's quite, no, to be honest with you, what you just said is normal, is right, it's okay. Some will be achieved, some will not be achieved.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the beauty of marriage. But taking back, one of my major expectation in marriage is I used to tell myself, I remember the exact day. Might not remember the date as in day, but I remember the exact moment. And I told myself, when I get married to Toyin, that is it. I'm going to stay with her. And I remember I said I'm going to have 2 kids with her, and that today we have 3 kids anyway.
We were supposed to have 6. You were looking for 6 or 10.
To increase the black population. I remember those youthful
days.
But then it's those are the things I kept in my mind. And one of the things my strong expectation when I was growing up, it was that, look, I don't want my wife to be running up and down, walking here and there, and all this stuff. But, getting married to you, and I discovered that, no, my wife is not like that. She's not the type that sits alone. She must get something done. She must be impactful. Now, having said that, I never expect to be a pastor anyway. Do you understand what I'm saying? I expect...
Neither did I.
My idea was, hey, make the money, make the life, and travel the whole world.
Yeah.
My wife tagging along with me. But having said that, 2 things I want to point out to those who are trying to get married, whether you are young, whether you are a second timer, or maybe you're a widower, whether you are even of age. There are realistic expectations and there are unrealistic expectations. You have to understand that.
Yeah.
And you will have unrealistic expectations and you have real ones. But know this very well. Not all expectations will be met.
No.
That is very sad. Not all expectations. And that doesn't mean you have a very bad partner.
No.
That doesn't mean you have a very bad marriage. It doesn't even mean you a bad person. The thing is this: expectation and reality, they're two different things. They're two different things. So we have to realize that it's very important. That's one of the things we want to share with you today. Having said that, baby, how you said something. There's some things you expected in the marriage of yourself and of your husband. That's me. Now, when it wasn't met, how do you handle? Can we let our viewers know how do you handle it? I remember you said something very important right now. Oh, yes, I just want my husband to myself, and then the demands of the mission field is there. So, in that sort of situation, how do you handle it? Do you sulk? Do you put up some ears? Let's share with the viewers.
All right, let me just piggyback a bit.
Yeah.
Wanting my husband to myself is not that I don't want my husband to mix with other people or other people mixing with us. I'm somebody that is very open-handed.
That's true.
My house is always open. I love people. I'm a people person. But what I'm trying to say is that when I got married, just because I was trying to find my footing in marriage, which is one of the things I really wish for a lot of young people these days to be able to still be able to get counseling even after they're married. When I first got married, I was trying to find my footing, and my friends, every one of us had finished school. We were in different places. Now, when we were in Lagos, it was a different thing. We could go to our friends would come. We're always having this little get-together there, the Siromas, having talks with our neighbors and stuff like that. And even my in-laws, people will come. I mean, everybody, we were all one big family. But when we moved to Nairobi was when all that, started, because it was a foreign land and we didn't know a lot of people were just starting out and stuff like that. And so I had to really just wanted to myself. But one of the things that helped me, and that's why I'm glad that happened in Nairobi, Kenya, because number one, when my husband was called to go to the mission field in Nairobi, Kenya, of course, they had asked me if I wanted to stay back and go. I said no. We were just married for barely some few years. We didn't have any children. I said I was going to go with him so that at least we can still be together. And we went. And one of the things I knew was that he is the pastor. He's the one that was called to go and start the parish there. I am the wife. I'm the helpmate. And one of the things I did was just to step back and realize that people are going to talk to my husband for counseling. He needs that time. He needs time to study so that he can preach the word of God. And above all, every time my husband is free, we're always together. And it was just both of us. We didn't have any children. They were not there. So that was how I handled it. I looked at it and I said, I have to be realistic. This is just one man, who is my husband, who needs to prepare the message for. Actually, one of the members of the church, Mama Katogo, came to meet me one day and said, how does Pastor do it? Because on Sunday, the message is there. On Tuesday, we have faith clinic. On Thursdays, we have Bible study. And then we have night vigil. And he said, how does he do it? And you can imagine all that. And then he still has to counsel people. And, we found a way to make it work. And it worked very, very well.
So in a nutshell, even if your expectation is not met, as in a marriage, you must have an understanding of what is going on, understanding of what is happening within the marriage. You see, those are the things you need to keep in mind when you are trying to go into marriage. You need a lot of understanding of yourself, of your partner. And then the other thing I want to say is, because our time is fast spent, is you mentioned something very important. Expectation changes. That means it evolves.
Yes.
So when you are going to marry, you must be ready. It will evolve. Just like you said about Nairobi, when we got married, we never thought that we were going to be missionaries. We never even thought of leaving Nigeria.
No.
I mean, not that way. I remember we were both, into heavy business, heavy ones. You had about 4 companies, if I remember, and I was teaching. I was dealing in diesel then. So we're actively involved in
Business,
business. But then mission field happened, and then we had to move out and all this. But great understanding is needed. So as you're preparing for marriage and getting ready for marriage, what you have expect of yourself, expect of your partner may not happen. We're not saying it's not going to happen, but if it doesn't happen, you need great understanding.
Yes.
You want to one more thing so that we can.
So I mean that's why I wanted to see if we can just talk a little bit about some of the unrealistic expectations.
Exactly.
So that people will know, because some people set this expectation and they think there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, let me chip in there. For example, I had a friend in those, he was doing very well, and then had a car, had a house, and everything. And then he just said, Dele, I said, yeah. Now what I want is a wife. I said, hold on. Are you sure you want a wife?
Just like that?
Because the way he spoke, I said, no, you are not looking for one. You just need somebody to take care of the house. So that can translate into an expectation. So that now, if you now get the wife and the person comes, doesn't take care of the house the way you want, and then that can be a big issue in the family.
Yes. Yeah. So some of the common, unrealistic expectations we've seen, and it could go both ways, is the fact that people believe I can change my spouse.
Oh, yeah.
I can change my spouse.
Big one.
But one of the things you have to know is that it's not every time we can change people. Change has to start from you first.
Yep.
Because what you're thinking of changing your spouse from might not be bad. It might just be the way you perceive it. You might be the one that needs to make the adjustment so that you will begin to see the change you want.
That's right.
Some people have been able to change their spouse. I think I changed my husband a little bit.
Oh,
in some ways, I believe so.
Let's just say it's an adjustment.
And it changed me. I had to adjust some things also. But don't go with that expectation, because it will always fail. It will always fail. People are not easy to change. Yeah. Another one is that, he or she has to drop their friends immediately we get married. You got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. I still know people who go with their friends on trips. They go with their girlfriends on trips. They go with their boyfriends on trips. I mean, the men go with their boyfriends and the girls goes with their girlfriends. As good as this is, I wouldn't want to say anything bad about it, but I always encourage for those friends to be married people. Because now you have a lot more in common with your married friends than your single friends. Not that you should shelve your single friends, but do more with them. And pray for those other ones to get married. So don't expect that your spouse, your husband or your wife will immediately drop those friends. Gradually, they might weed off because interest might change. Priorities have changed. But don't force it, because if you do, you might lose that person to the friends. Also, it will make me entirely happy. It's going to fulfill me. It's going to complete me. Those are expectations that people have. If you are not happy before you come into marriage, you come into that marriage an unhappy person.
Yes, sir. And you're affected with unhappiness.
Exactly. So one of the things we need to do before we get married is to check ourselves. We cannot say this enough now. We have to check our state of mind. We have to check where we are. Am I happy as a person? Do I feel fulfilled in the things I'm doing? Because that man, that woman is not going to fulfill you completely like that. They are not God. Only God can do that. And the Bible says that the joy of the Lord is our strength. Amen. Joy comes from God. Happiness comes from... That's why when people are having problems in their home, they can't handle it. But if you look up unto God from the onset, you'll be able to do it. I'm not saying that your husband, your wife should not make you happy. No, far be it from me. That should be your happiest place ever. When I used to walk far away from home, I remember that when I get into my car, the drive is long, I want to get home because I know when I get there, it's as if all my problems are solved. And they really are solved. I see my husband, he puts a smile on my face, I see my children, I'm happy. So let's also know that, please, do things for yourself before you go into marriage so that you don't expect to put the burden on your spouse. And the fact that it's going to be available for you all the time might not be a realistic goal. Even in the age of people working remotely, remotely, that man, that woman might not be there all the time. Because you see, people need their own space once in a while, right?
Yeah.
They need that space, right?
Before time, let me just jump in about the change. There's something when, as you are planning to go into marriage, you need to put this in mind. I want to encourage you to actually put this in mind. There's certain thing about your partner that will never change. You have to come to terms with that. There's some things will just will
change.
not change.
That's from experience, right?
Yeah. And then also there's certain things that will change and you'll be shocked that, oh, this really happened. Maybe your partner used to be the quiet, gentle type, and all of a sudden, when marriage comes, and then it becomes a testy person, becomes a toxic person. And there could be many factors. It could be job factor, health factors, and what have you. So the reason why we're saying this is just to prepare your heart, to prepare your mind. Because a lot of people have gone into divorce because of expectation. Anytime I see the reason why people divorce and it is stated or written as irreconcilable differences, I know immediately the source is
Expectations.
I know it immediately.
It's major.
It's major.
You don't know how major that expectation is.
So
it's major.
I think this expectation thing, if you don't mind, maybe it's something we need to look into again, probably the next broadcast or sometime before we run, maybe just across the board. But it's really, really major. So one of the things we're trying to say, because we're talking to those who are preparing for marriage, looking up to get married, maybe in a very short while or sometime later, but expectation, it's very important. And remember this, change starts with you. Just like my wife told, change starts with you.
It starts with you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So before we round up, do you have anything you would love to tell our viewers before we round up?
Well, I think we've said it a lot, but what I just want to say is that no one is a mind reader.
Yep.
Don't expect your spouse to be able to read your mood or read your mind when things are going on. Be clear about what you're feeling. And one of the best ways to maintain marriage is to be able to have a good marriage, a successful marriage, is to learn how to manage expectations.
That's right.
So I believe that's what we should talk about next time, how to manage expectations.
Yeah.
So I want to encourage you, make sure that you join us next time because we're going to be talking about managing expectation. We're going to help you to manage those expectations that you think are not working. Might not be that they're not working. Might just be that you don't need those expectations at all. Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. That's how much we have today. But I would like to say this again. If you want us to pray with you, if you want us to counsel you, the number is going to be on the screen. We're always available to share God's goodness with you. We want you to know this. God is interested in marriage.
Yes.
He's the author of marriage. He wants the best for you. He wants you to have a good life because like I always tell people during marriage is the best thing that can happen to anybody, irrespective of bad marriages out there. Even if you come out of a bad marriage, marriage is still the best thing that can happen to anybody. They will ask me, why is that? I said, if it's not the best thing, God will set it up.
That's true.
So we wish you all the best if you're trusting God for a life partner, for a husband, for a wife, whether you're a young person, whether you're of age, or maybe you're a second timer. We pray to God. God will bring the bone of your bone and the flesh of flesh. And from me and from my wife of 30 years, we want to say, God bless you and bye.
Bye-bye.